Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of ILLflips. I'm Jordan Barry Brown from ILLstrips. Hope you all had a good Christmas. Maybe you had some time to catch up on some reading. Maybe you gave some books. Maybe you received some books. I got some books for Christmas. I spent Christmas in Paris. My girlfriend's family are from there. And so it's pretty irresistible to check out some of the Bande Dessinée stores that city has. There's a lot of good stuff to find at a pretty good price generally. So I got some gifts and I also bought some stuff. So I thought maybe today we just unpack some of that stuff that I picked up, starting with these two early Jacques Tardi works. This is his first comic, Adieu Brindavon, and Le Démon de Glace, which is the Arctic Marauders in English, and this is Farewell Brindavon. These are from Casterman, and I guess they're good companion pieces in stores for the Adele Blanc Sec, which has 12 albums or volumes. So I actually read this one while I was away, and it's his first work. So I mean, the art is fantastic, but the story is bizarre, and it reads a little bit like some of the early Adele Blanc sex stories. They're kind of slightly all over the place, a little incoherent at times, um, and just kind of confusing. Now, I did read it in French, and French is not my first language, but you can still tell, and by reading Adele Blanc Sec in English, you can kind of tell he's finding his chops as a writer, but he's a very good artist from the get go. Just even some of this stuff I thought was cool. Just this panel border with the porch of the door. He's always great for drawing just old world antiques and oddities in the backgrounds. His backgrounds are always filled with just interesting little details that really bring a richness into his work. Just masks, and see this like stuffed shark, just all sorts of statuettes and bits of furniture in the backgrounds. So this story is about a guy who's kind of summoned to be, I guess, a candidate for a trip to, I don't know, to be an heir to some bizarre city in the desert. Anyway, he ends up in Istanbul after this fella's shot, the guy who's delivered him the message. So it's piqued his curiosity, and he's been um, summoned to Istanbul to meet this guy. And then he meets this other fella, and they make headway into the Afghan desert, and they're pursued and attacked again by this fella on the motorbike. He's great at drawing vehicles too, and I don't know, Tardi has this weird ability to make, it's like a simplistic style, but it's also very rooted in real life. Like, these are perfectly drawn little motorbikes, cars, but he makes it just look so easy. I guess it's his line work. I think he uses like a rapidograph and a brush, so it's very lively and cartoony, but also, you know, there's a lot of realism to his work also. Um, and he's just good at like drawing anything within that style. And his character designs are always pretty cool too. And his colors are great also. I think he colored this. So these guys are getting drunk in the desert. They're walking around. This plane is trying to attack them. Just this freaky looking lady on the plane. Again, great character designs. They're marched into the desert and they arrive at this place, which is kind of like a floating fortress. There's all these kind of nomads trying to break in and climb up these, I guess they're kind of like ladders of sorts that are keeping this building afloat. Great movement, hard to draw a horse, and even harder to draw a horse being shot and falling over. There you can see. Great guns. I don't know, I really like his work, and it's cool to see his first go at it, writing and illustrating. So anyway, our Brindavon guy arrives on this fortress, and some of the past characters he's met in his story arrive. It's this kind of stuff that like people just appear and like disappear in his stories, and sometimes they're in disguise, and then it can just be a bit jarring. But really, you're here just for the great art. And then his writing. Well, I guess he teams up with Manchette later to do the streets of Paris and all the gangster stuff, crime stuff. Um, and that's written by Manchette, so he works very well with a writer, I think. Not to say his stories aren't good; they're full of imagination and beauty. Interesting bedroom. There's some owls. Like just he's having like some sort of a nightmare here. Demons, and again, just a really nice color palette. It's always drawing people in the bath. Cool. Adele Blanc-Sec is always chilling in the bath. And the character design is just that he doesn't drop the ball on them in this little story. So this little fella here, everybody's kind of vying for the top spot on this fortress, it seems. And the fortress is owned by this like old decrepit Wall Street dude. It's almost like the guy from what is it, the Red Dragon film from the Hannibal series. This kind of like deformed guy, and he says basically, if I take this contraption off, I'll just turn into yogurt or something along those lines. And he has a pet gorilla. So it's just fun. I mean, you could almost imagine like Mike Mignola or someone like that reading these when he was a kid or when he was younger, and being inspired just by the oddity, the kind of occult themes and giant gorillas. Love these kind of panels. And the nomads are trying to enter from the desert, and they've gotten through, and there's a bit of a shootout. The dog is shot. Never good. And then this huge blimp appears with this other fella who just is now here as if he's always been there, and he's flying them off. The blimp, the city gets destroyed, the blimp gets out of there. It's called the Wall Street 4. Cool skies. More double crossing within the last standing. Then it's basically just Brindavon on this blimp. And he's flying over the Black Sea, I think. He's shot down. He's told that World War I has just begun. He hopes that by the time he makes it back to Paris, it's over. But of course it's not. And this kind of very old looking gentleman fills us in on what happened in the meantime. And then this is kind of weird short story about Brindavon in World War I, fighting against the Germans in France. It's pretty bleak, as you might imagine. Kind of lost interest at this point a little bit. There's more in it for all the strange. Well, I mean, the drawing's always good, but the build-up just has a lot of strange scenarios and designs. Stuff's pretty great too, though. Just like drawing the inside of a cathedral, all fucked up from the war. Yeah, pretty great stuff. Interior pages. And then that's the list of the Adele Blanc-Sec, and then the before Adele Blanc-Sec. So these two books. So just have a quick little flipper through this. So Le Démon de Glace. And this is all black and white. And a really different style that you don't really see Jacques Tardi really do again. It looks very rigorous. Almost looks like he's using some sort of a screen tone sometimes, but I think it's just him with his rapidograph just doing lines. Those backgrounds. Really interesting drawings of icebergs. He's able to really achieve kind of a depth with these icebergs too. I haven't read this one yet. Apparently it does read a little odd also. A lot of show. Not a huge amount to tell. But I mean, really interesting visuals and just very good black and white art on display. This ship is stuck on top of an iceberg and they're sailing over to try and see if anybody's left surviving on board. Yeah, I mean, just that image alone is incredible, and really cool panels throughout. Just good variation, interesting, keeps you engaged with it visually. And I think there's a couple of just standalone stories in this. And again, always good just for laboratories full of jars of decrepit animals and strange creatures pickling in jars. Really cool machinery, all these pumps and cisterns. And I think he's one of the best at drawing buildings. It's difficult to draw all these Parisian settings, and he just gives them a lot of life. There's nothing stiff about the buildings at all, which is a hard thing to do. He does. It doesn't even really look like he's ruled any of that out, which is impressive when it comes to architecture. Here's Gare Montparnasse. Again, pretty stunning drawing of a train station. Cool train in silhouette. And I think these two books, the one that I just showed you in this, they came out in the same year, so busy guy. Some great drawings of an octopus, some whales. Amazing drawing of a big bedroom. A lot of circular panels, ovular panels, cross sections of machines or icebergs or whatever are cool. There is an English version of this too. Fantagraphics put out these two books not that long ago in English. I'm going to try and read both these stories in English and just see how they fare. And the first two volumes of Adèle Blanc-Sec are in English too, which collects I think maybe 4 actually volumes across a 2-volume English set. Fantagraphics put out all of his Streets of Paris with Manchette also. This guy, the big club foot. Yeah, highly recommend these, just for a feast for the eyeballs. Pretty cool. So then I went to a Pum by Pum and picked up a couple of bits there. That was good for just little odds and sods. Found this book, Sexties, all about the kind of erotic pop art publications put out in the late 60s in France and Belgium. You know, this is going to be Guy Pichard, Pravda, Jodel, Jean-Claude, what's his name? Barbarella, Jean-Claude Forest. And there's quite a few of these books. A lot of them were like, it's kind of, it does a little bit of a background into the build up towards the 60s Barbarella is kind of the one that pops it all off with Jean-Claude Forest. Eric Losfeld was this guy was the publisher. On Thorin Vague, sorry, bad pronunciation. The Fille du Thorin Vague. And he was from a Belgian guy who was putting out kind of, I suppose, racier comics of the time. I have the Barbarella one and I have the Jodelle one. There's quite a few books though that I've actually discovered I didn't know about that are in this beyond those initial publications that look really interesting and are kind of in the same vein. You know, there's a lot of vibrant, bright colors. It's quite pop arty, especially the Jodelle and Pravda stuff, and then even Lone Sloan with a bit of Droulet. You know, one of his earliest publications here with Eric Losfeld's publication house. And sometimes it's just one color per page, a bit like Barbarella. That changes throughout the course of the album. Scarlet Dream. There's another one here. And they're pretty great. I mean, they're just kind of erotic sci-fi bizarreness and just a lot of culture from the time steeped inside the pages. And just an interesting time for European comics. And a big inspiration on something I'm working on at the moment. So I'm kind of like grabbing as much of this kind of stuff as I can for reference and just some reading. This is in French. I'd love if this book was in English so I could just read it easily. The print is very small too, so it's kind of tricky to use Google Translate. Just, you know, it's a whole other thing. Saga de Zam looks great. I was looking online for this one. It's quite expensive, but there's a reprint. Yeah, and they all, I mean, they've got these very kind of long female figures that are bent and twisted in interesting ways. And then colored with these very vibrant pinks, purples, blues, or just, as I said, this singular color. So yeah, this is an interesting book. There's a lot of stuff inside. Some great artists. But yeah, I would love if it was in English. I'm gonna do my best to read a bit of it. Chip away at it. It's a big enough book. I think it was put out by this collector, and maybe comic historian Benoit Bande. And what else did I get in my boom? Let's have a look. This is just an issue of Phoenix with a George Pichard cover. An illustration from his Ulysses story. This is pretty cool. I mean, it's not too dissimilar to some of the other French magazines at the time, like Harakiri or Pilote, Charlie Menswell. Got a bit of Crepax here. Great panel. Oh, there's our guy, Brenda Vaughan. He's got some Tardi. Even a little bit of Hector Osterfeld, and just the stuff with Alberto Brescia, the Argentinians. And this is Mort Cinder, also put out by Fantagraphics not too long ago. It was a nice book. Amazing art. And just a couple of pages of that. Cartoon spots. Here's your Ulysses story. Third. Be great. Felix the cat. And then a bit of Droulet. Yeah. Cover's pretty sweet. Here's more Pichard with them. I guess the Cruise from Hell. It'll be in English. Blanche Epiphanie. And this actually kind of reminded me of the stuff we looked at there in the Arctic Marauder Tardi story. Just lots of ships, really cool black and white art, great panels. Pichard's style is like, it changes a lot. We've looked at him before on this channel, but there's a period where his girls, his females, they all have these big kind of heavy eyelinered eyes, and then freckles. It just gives them this kind of like weird gothic look, but it's kind of instantly recognizable as him. He also was great for varied panels. Look at this stuff. Yeah, he's just a breathtaking artist. Great in black and white. And he has a series Paulette with another fellow whose name is escaping me now. But he's quite a lot of work out there. He's also Borneo Joe, Ulysse, and he does a whole lot of work for French publications throughout the 60s and 70s, 80s. Panels made of cigarette smoke or some sort of atmosphere. Just a lot of illustration. He's a very good illustrator, and he brings a lot of that into his comic book work. Hatching. Not sure when this is from. Let's see, it's the 70s. Maybe late 70s. Look at this. Just really great pages. Big size too. Again, I'd be looking at someone like this if you're doing a story set in 60s France. There's just a lot of inspiration in these pages. George Pichard. This was a fun little find. It's just Charles Vess Spider-Man. I like the look of the cover. Actually didn't realize it was in French. Should have seen that. But because sometimes they sell English stuff, English superhero comics in Web1. But the art's cool. Look at that. That's pretty nice. Old school illustration style. It is a good Spider-Man. I'll try and read this one with the old Google Translate. Not really like Spider-Man you've seen before. But Charles Vess did a lot of stuff for Marvel Fanfare, which is always really nice to look at. And I think he's done some work with them. Oh, what's your man from Sandman? Drawing a blank here, for fuck's sake. Anyway, he's been around. But his Marvel stuff's always interesting to look at. Because it's just very not their typical house style. Looks more European than anything really. And there's two Italians. Got Buzzelli and Guido Crepax, Guido Buzzelli, Guido Crepax. I like to look at this cover. Kind of, when I saw this cover, I was like, maybe it's got a lot of sketches inside. Just from looking at this border. Neil Gaiman, sorry, that just popped into my head. The Sandman dude. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, there is some sketchbook looking stuff, which is interesting to look at. Some weird kind of frog, royal frog creatures here. skeletal, dying looking horses, figure work. Just working out his character designs. This story is called like The Revolt of the Rats, I think. Some rat people. Yeah, I guess that's what that was. Rat person, or frog person. Yeah, good sketchbook pages. And yeah, Buzzelli's from Rome. His family had a pretty rich history of art. So yeah, it was interesting to check out some of his stuff. I have a couple of his other books on the shelf there with some pretty interesting covers. I might just show you one of the covers or two if I can find them here. Always like this one. Wild. There's also that one. So it's quite sketchy looking, but that's kind of part of his style. The Revolt of the Rat People. Good stuff. Crepax, probably known from Valentina, but he has a couple of one-shots. There's one of his war stories. He's also got The Man from Harlem, and you can see what's cool about these little short stories is they're mostly colored, and it looks like he's using a watercolor. But like, I don't know, there's just something kind of just the same in his art style, his drawing style. It's so good, but it looks so kind of dashed out. But there's so much control at the same time. Like he's just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. But he, like the same here with the color. Like he's almost just, you know, letting the watercolors bleed there, just making marks. But it all works since there's still a precision, and he knows what he's up to. There's no one quite like Crepax. And to say, his style does change depending on the story also. That's just a little watercolor war story from Crepax, which is cool. And also got this, which is Drulet's Nosferatu. Weird kind of silver finish on the cover, and it also carries throughout the interiors this weird kind of silvery effect. Haven't read this one. It's obviously a vampire story of some sort, starring Nosferatu. Looks interesting. Looks pretty creepy. Just suits Drulet's style of sharp-looking panels and characters. You almost cut yourself on these, especially now that they've got this like metallic color treatment over them. This is weird. I've never seen this before in the interior of a book. This metallic colors. Drulet always amazing at drawing vehicles, spacecraft, panels. This is a bit rougher looking than his usual Lone Sloan stuff, but I'm not sure if it's before or later. Probably later. Cool monsters. Always trying some stuff with the panel borders. It's kind of weird symbols inside these. That's pretty cool. And then I got these two books in Galerie de l'Art. I think it's in Bastille. I don't remember the name of the shop, Gallery something or another. But the great Paul Edard has a new zine out, so I picked that up. This stuff's bonkers. I mean, it's nothing else like it. It's all inspired by, I guess, his love for 80s film, 80s video games, pop art. It's kind of hard to decipher how he's created these images. There's like just trying to reverse them to see how he's gone about this. If it's done first with several traditional layers and then it's tweaked digitally, I'm not really sure, but it's bonkers stuff. And this is quite a thick cardstock scene. And it looks, it's more of an art object than anything. Here's the rock, some wrestling. Street of Blood. Some video games. Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of his zines, but always really fun to look through. Amazing color. You can follow him on Instagram at Paul Edard. Good follow if you enjoy this kind of work. This is great. Yeah, it kind of looks like some sort of like colored fine liners with marker and a whole bunch of technique, but it's I'd love to see him create one of these images. It's really interesting. And then just this little Oog Eco Supers. This is the number 3 from this edition Cornelius. They put out a Charles Burns one. There's another one in between that I don't have, but they're kind of interesting little books, nicely made. And then this one just focuses on he calls superheroes from the Marvel universe, so the X-Men, but they're just very, bizarre looking renditions of the characters, which is really cool to see. And he's doing them with, looks like watercolor or some kind of water-based inks. They're paintings, really. I mean, I don't know how big they are in real life. But it's here's a cool double-page spread. Daredevil, Black Widow, Weird Beast. And you can follow him on Instagram too. I think it's at Oog Spread with Black Panther. Tricky spread, seeing as the characters in the middle, but get the idea. Yeah, I mean, it's all your favorite Marvel characters in a. I think this one's my favorite. In a very different art style to what you've usually seen. Should be cool. I don't know if I don't think Marvel would pick this up, but they should. They should get him on board. Maybe they have. I don't know. And then just 2 really nice big books to finish this out. I saw this. I was going to order this, and it was quite expensive to ship it to Ireland, where I'm at. But I saw it in a store, and it was like €45. So not the worst, price-wise. It's just a big, beautiful art book from Moebius production of a lot of Arzak material. From throughout Moebius's career. And they've been putting out these Moebius production books every now and then. They're always really nice. Just a way, I suppose, of keeping Moebius relevant. Not that he's not always relevant, but just something new on the shelf. Like his family owns Moebius Production, so and they put a lot of effort into the design of these books. And there's always a couple of bits that you've maybe not seen before. Classic Battle 2-page spread from Arzak. Yeah, it's a big enough book. It's really just Moebius from throughout his career. He always kept the Arzak character alive, and kind of the Arzak character. It's interesting because this book actually is in English. Also, there's an English section below the French part. And the Arzak character kind of morphs throughout Moebius's career into different characters. We've got this guy, what's his name? Star or something or another. So he kind of evolves as Moebius's art style evolves. I think it's kind of what I'm gathering. Seems like Stargazer or something. Nemo. Moebius Miyazaki exhibition. This is really expensive these days. I think it's like $1.50 for this exhibition brochure. Yeah, you can't really go wrong with a bit of Moebius. Star Watcher. Yeah, I was hesitating on this book and had a good flip through it in the store. And for that price, it's hard to resist taking it home. You can see it's got all of this gold foil on the lettering. This kind of interesting blue color cover, a little bit of white line art. It's a nice book. And then last but not least, some Corto Maltese, his Fable in Venice. This book just has some, it's like, I think there's maybe 5 of these, and they focus on maybe some of the more popular Corto stories, but they're very nicely put together. There's a lot of supplementary stuff if you like these stories. So this one is set in Venice. It's probably one of his more famous tales. I think Hugo Pratt was either from Venice or he spent a lot of his time in Venice. So you're getting, some of his research for this story, locations, statues, mosaics. I would also love to do a story set in Venice at some point, so happy to pick this up. Venice is a strange place. There's a lot of kind of secret history to it. Seems like a good place to have a cult. A lot of history with just crime and murder. There's a lot of dark alleyways in Venice. Kind of eerie, rocking back and forth of the boats at night, on the canals. It's a perfect setting for some sort of creepy cult story, which is Fable in Venice. These look like maybe sort of reliefs, or there's some coins. Coat of arms. So he's obviously done his research. And then, yeah, you can see, anyway, it's all really interesting. Some kind of Masonic stuff also. And then just a different color treatment. This looks like, I can't remember the name of the guy who colored this. I should know. But it looks like watercolor, but then if you look, it does have kind of a dot pattern. Maybe initially watercolor, then a different color process on top. But it does give it more texture than like I have this story with the actual watercolor. which is also really nice. This is by a different colorist. But this one just has a bit more grit and a bit more texture to it. It's organized also for this. The layout's changed. Little cats watching the activity in the story. Little cats in Venice. These big shadows looming in the alleyways around the canals. This is a good story to start with if you've never read Corto Maltese. It's not that long, and I think it's maybe his 7th volume. So he's established the character pretty well at that stage. Just some great imagery throughout. It's a classic. He's him chatting to all the cats of Venice. All the lion statues, gondolas. It's good stuff. It's a weird genie character in the story. And like there's a lot of this, so there's, if you're into just, it does have a bit of a vibe of Tintin also, just many cults, hooded figures. There's this genie character that he has an encounter with. So here's your list of other stories. But I think in this edition, be 5. Here's all the characters on the back. And that's about it, really. Thank you very much for following the video so far. I hope to keep this up, so like, subscribe, leave a comment, and hope you enjoy the rest of the holiday period.